Hi guys, so today we are going to be doing a world map RP. Basically, we have this whole world map for us, so let's get into it. So first, we are going to start off with Germany, as they're going to be the main villains. The Nazi Social Republic group, yeah, that's what it's going to be turning into, starts from the bottom part of Germany and takes Western Germany. Germany fights back for a little bit, but eventually everyone wants Greater Germany and it's captured. Now, NATO and other alliances will not beat Cannon in this scenario. Germany already has $5 trillion, which they invested a ton of money into. Things in drones, tanks, and such. So, they start expanding their territory. However, most countries do not like this expansion, especially France. So they declare war on Germany. However, thanks to Germany's boosted everything, really, France doesn't holds back for a little, but not for long. Poland starts to come back now. Germany is fighting a two-front war. However, they're actually handling it very goodly. The Poland rebellion lasts for a little while, but while they were focusing on that, France pushed very, very deep. So now, Germany has to do a giant push in France, taking tons of things out, and they captured Paris, which left France in an ultimate demise. However, Italy thought, oh, look, the Germans are weak. We could finally take their land. However, some people in Italy said, no, just collect that island of France. They collected that island of France, and now they are bordering the Nazi Germany. Austria gets captured, but with some rebellion, not much though. Though Austria was preparing for this fight with tons of bunkers, so they're able to reclaim their land because of the ton of bunkers that they have. However, eventually, Switzerland lets them pass too, and they weren't prepared for Switzerland and Italy to backstab them like that. So then they just came in, slipped through the bunkers, and yeah. They went through Italy and occupied it like that. Now, obviously, this started in 2020. 2025 was when the invasion of Ukraine happened. And this is happening now. Though this time, the anti-drones, which Germany has much of them, capture Ukraine and Russia, taking the opportunity as all of Ukrainian drones are basically done. Takes the rest of Ukraine, and then Russia and the Nazis have the border now, and it's getting heavily fortified. Belarus requests to not unite with Russia. They request the Baltic states, but they actually hate Russia, so they unite with Germany. Now, Germany is scared that Norway and the British will form a big navy fleet over here to attack the German land. So, to prevent that happening, they get this here. And one of my friends just joined, so don't worry about them. Now, the British realize this, and now they have tons of naval fights. Eventually, the Brits have a small landing on Norway, which is eventually scrapped. And Germans take some of the islands. They heavily fortify the islands. They take over Ireland, and now they have Ireland taking control A lot of battles are happening here. A lot of battles are happening here. A lot of battles are happening on the English Channel. So landings come here, here, and here, which unfortunately demised the British' existence. Now, this guy decided to interrupt my roleplay, so now we have to kill this guy. Not actually, but like, damn, stop. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Russia. Anyways, now there's going to be a collision formed. Well, not really a collision, but Italy formed a collision to stop the Nazis. Now, the people in the collision are not going to be colored Italy. However, they are going to be colored as basically a shade of green, so like how Switzerland is. So yeah. Italy requests a lot of the coast. Every country gives them the coast except Albania, who is now a communism for some reason, and then starting to attack Serbia, and then they win for some reason. I don't know why Albania is doing that. Whatever. So now they capture Iceland as they want the territory here, and they go up to Greenland because first of all there's not going to be any resistance, and since they claimed Denmark, since they invaded Denmark, now they technically already had Greenland, but they want it to make it official. So now with the claiming of Greenland, Germany has become one of the biggest countries on the global map. However, Greenland barely has any resources, so it's kind of just there. However, Germany is nice, and they take tons of snow and gives it to the children to play with the snow. So yeah, that's nice. However, they're using a lot of that snow. So yeah. And only really Berlin gets that privilege. Some small towns do also, but not really. Sweden was about to get invaded, but then they had a deal with Germany. They will give Germany all of its gold, resources, and troops can pass through, which gave Germany enough things to say, okay, we will not invade you. So yeah. Also, the invasion of Russia will happen soon. Anyways, Germany just starts taking some of the states. And now, Albania wants to join the Axis. So Albania joins the Axis, and now they get tons of supply from Germany to take out Greece. Now Albania has like its little empire next to Italy and stuff. Italy goes after Libya with a big navy fleet. There was a big navy fleet, but Libya easily took that down because Italy's not forming the empire, the Roman Empire. I'm sorry. Yeah. And now Libya is very more hard to probably said this name wrong, but now it's very, very hard to invade. Turkmenistan, I don't know how to pronounce it, wants to join Libya, and they accept, but only as a puppet state, which is in a couple of seconds turned into a yes. Egypt is obviously not exactly thrilled about this, but they don't exactly attack either. I was just doing that for some reason. Now, Albania realizes a little rebel group and automatically takes it down. Germany is going to now take over Bulgaria, Romania, and Moldova. So Albania and Germany basically just split it. Kind of. Germany takes that part and Albania takes the rest. However, Germany gets a lot of the resources, around like 50% of the resources from those countries, but it's still a big upgrade for Albania. And plus, that 50% goes down soon. So yeah. Yeah, and by the looks of it, it looks like Albania might even pass Italy as an ally soon. Well, Italy's not exactly an ally, but Germany might be stronger than Italy eventually. Oh yeah, and I forgot to say, Albania just invaded Turkey, so that war's gonna be going on in the background. For now, what we all been waiting for, the invasion of Russia. Now, the invasion of Russia starts off very goodly for Germany. Boom, 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 boom. The Polish also, well, not Polish, but Finland gets a part of Russia, and now Finland is bringing tons of soldiers through Russia now. Finland also allows people to pass their soldiers through. And now Finland is like a little empire of its own. Not really an empire, but good Poland. Good country, I guess. But for now, that's all they get, unfortunately, for Polish people. But then Finland, why am I pronouncing this wrong? Oh my god. Finland thinks they're a big shot and decides to attack Germany. Now, Germany doesn't like that notion. Germany does not like that. Germany does not like that. And also, they're kind of forgetting about this thing. Yeah, Sweden takes advantage of that. And with its newfound land, they also get a new flag and a new power. So since they have a little bit more power, they get a new color. Germany didn't get a new color because of, well, it's already very powerful from the start, so this isn't really a big achievement. Matter of fact, toward the end of the battles and such, it might actually be weaker from its time when it was a regular country. Only with Austria, Poland, and Belgium and Netherlands. So yeah, Russia actually gets invaded now. It is winter, but thing is that obviously winter doesn't exactly slow down the Germans. They just retreat a little bit, which automatically gets them this land back. But now they have winter things. But now they have things for winter. So they push more deep in, but they try to push near here, which they captured heavy oil preserves. Now by this time, Albania has already pushed deep into Turkey and basically already captured it. But by this war, Italy has enough and asks Spain to unite with them. They ultimately say no, but Italy starts invading Germany. Now, I don't know what Italy was really thinking, but, yeah, that basically happens. Because there were still a little bit of troops there, and Yeah, Albania also gets a lot of Italy, so Italy is no longer a country. Will they have rebellions? Most likely in the series, but not for now, not for long, not for a little while. Now, Germany keeps on pushing into Russia heavily, and it looks like this is nearly the end for Russia. Except, well, it is the end. Kazakhstan wants to get a piece of land of Russia, and they sadly get it. Now, Russia is starting to fall. The fall of Russia is happening, and Russia surrenders to Germany. Now, Germany requests tons of oil and some lands as a thing. And they also request this last region, which unfortunately they get. Now, Russia is super weakened, and most of its population was in the European part. And now Russia is completely kicked out of Europe. So, yeah. Russia also tries to beg the USA for help, but the USA says no, obviously. So, yeah. Russia is in shambles right now, and the chances of it getting this back is 0. And now they take over the northern island of Norway because they can. They have naval bases here now, and air bases. So yeah, Germany is one of the biggest, if not basically the biggest, because it's bigger than United States, and looking on the map, I believe it's bigger than Canada. Not Canada, but it's definitely at least the 4th biggest on the map. And it will only get bigger. Then Germany had enough, and they just started to invade Sweden because they realized they can get even more gold and oil if they just invade. But they did it quick, so Sweden didn't have a time to basically get the oil out, get the gold out, and destroy all of the mines. So, yeah, only like 5% of the mines were even destroyed. So, yeah. Now, Germany sends Albania ultimatum to capture all of this area. Albania says, I don't see exactly why not, but yeah. So they take over Israel and this and that. However, Israel actually fights back for a little with help of the USA. And Albania was already pulling its troops, which leave a little fight. However, eventually the fight is dissolved. Now, Albania is actually becoming one of the largest on Earth, but not the largest yet. Germany wanted the whole Caspian Sea, so they just did that, and they attempted to invade the rest of Kazakhstan, which Kazakhstan actually fought extremely good back. However, eventually Kazakhstan was still demised. So now they own the whole Caspian Sea. I'm sorry, rebels were in the thing. So yeah, Saudi Arabia doesn't exactly have a weak military, but they're not going head-on with this super giant. However, they spend a lot of money in military, which nearly gets them to a big different level of military. Oh, so the U.S. comes this time, and the whole Arabian Peninsula begins to unite. They tried to do Iran, but Iran said, no, I don't want to be united. So yeah, Albania now has a bit of a challenge. However, surprisingly, Egypt sides with Albania and starts to invade. Albania takes this opportunity well and invades the Arabian Peninsula. The Arabians become even a bigger level of military spending and such. In this region is still on its default. So yeah, it looks like they're gonna lose, except they don't have good navy, and plus Albania takes the lines of Egypt and starts to heavily invade. Before they close the borders, they offer Libya a little chance of land. Libya lands in and starts to invade as well. However, they don't cut off the German troops. Well, the Albanian troops, but German troops are also obviously there. Then they just cut off Libya, but they took that opportunity, and now the Arabian Peninsula is down to the part where it was weakest. They have a good holdout of the air because they position all of its last military, but that still doesn't exactly win the war for them. Now, this is the rise of the Axis, but the fall is coming very soon. They invade this now. This is looking like the Ottoman Empire. No, it's not. And the Axis own tons of the oil in the whole entire regions, really. And they're both sharing the oil, so this is going to be very hard. Yeah. Parts of the world had already been claimed. The dominance of the world is nearly 25%. They want to invade Switzerland, but they're like, should we even? Because Switzerland has very bad plans for them. They'll just blow up the bridges and starve Nazi soldiers to death and stuff. So yeah. Spain eventually gets invaded. However, Spain doesn't exactly go down easily as they unite with here. And they unite with, I forgot how to pronounce the name, Margot? Yeah. But this country was the first country to recognize the USA, which means they have an alliance with the USA. So now the USA is getting involved in the war finally. And the USA doesn't play. The USA lands on France and starts to invade Germany heavily. However, their fall was just as quick as their demise, as Germany was a lot stronger than the USA now, with 13 million troops, and all of them had better guns, better everything. The only things that could even withstand the Germans were the Navy SEALs, but they still lost heavily. The last couple of things were eliminated, but they give the United Kingdom some land because they just felt generous, as they can be like a puppet state. They supplied the United Kingdom with some troops to go invade as much of America as they can. Matter of fact, they actually give the United Kingdom and all of the Brits that are even still existing at this point to go train and go capture Canada. All of the Brits that want to, because there are still Brits in that country. However, they know they don't want to die, and they kind of, yeah. All of them are stationed at here. However, now that all of them are already landed on ships and such, the Nazis just take back their land. And they try to invade Canada now. Obviously, invading Canada wasn't exactly a good idea, as there's only like 100,000 British soldiers, which is definitely enough to take out Canada, especially with the Nazis' gear. But if America steps in, this collision is cooked. So, they just claim this part of Canada and say, I surrender. And, that's the line. So, yeah. That's the line of, the Brits and the Canadians. However, the Brits also lose some land since they surrendered. But they also gain some land in Canada. Now the Nazis get back the British's land. But now they have a border with the United States. And there are German aircraft carriers like in 100 kilometers away from Washington, D.C. And that isn't a lot. That really isn't a lot. Especially the aircraft carriers that can carry nukes. So, yeah. Germany and the Nazis looked like they having the time of their life. However, when they were distracted, the Russian Confederation had a communism group start somewhere in Siberia. And this is the last chance to fight for Germany, especially the borders in Germany really wants communism. And the weakened Russian army cannot fight back, as that war just happened a couple months ago. China obviously takes this opportunity and helps the communism people. However, Germany quickly sees this and is like, oh, no, you don't. And quickly starts to invade, actually making an alliance with Russia. All of their captured lands returned to Russia, and they're actually cooperating. Are there some Russian soldiers choking Nazi soldiers with their bare fists? Yes. Because that's basically what they did to their country until a lot of blood came out. But most of them are not. Actually, a lot of them are, but like the Nazis are not as strong as them. But the Nazis also come in bigger groups, so whoever is trying to choke the Nazis out on the Russia soldier side eventually gets dead. Now, since that nightmare was completed, now Russia starts to invade China, which goes not exactly well. However, most of the Chinese soldiers are very far away. So when they start getting there, by the way, keep in mind that 90% of the Chinese population is like in this little region. Albania takes the opportunity and gets that region with the billion of populations of the Chinese. A lot of the Chinese, so yeah. Vietnam also turns into a different color. Well, it doesn't turn into a different color. It's just for confusion. But it actually starts to make an alliance with every country here. As if you are surrounded by India and nearly Albania, which is a superpower, surrounded by 3 superpowers. Well, it was 2, but now there's 3 because it's split in India now. Would you be in the best situation? No, you have to make your own little superpower. And that's exactly what they did. And Indonesia only gives this one island to them, like under the alliance control. So anyone there will, well, they actually gave 2 islands, but anyone there will already automatically be basically a part. So yeah. South Korea thinks about joining it, but realizes America is a better protector, and they actually invade North Korea very easily, and they splash K-pop music and kill Kim Jong-un and his whole family and tortures Kim Jong-un to death. So yeah, that's what happens. So yeah. This is all for now. We're gonna start off not focusing with China as much. So yeah. Well, it looks like my friend joined. He's gonna leave, trust me. Just ignore him. So yeah, China also gets split up by this little part that was actually bigger for communism. However, this part ultimately gets crushed by Russia, as Russia hates communism and is now hating China. So yeah, yeah. Mongolia, out of fear, unites with Russia, who is in a rage mode currently, and is going to take out China at all costs they freaking have. So, yeah, China gets split like that for now. However, things are not exactly cool between the Nazis, even though that happened. Matter of fact, the Nazis still kind of hate Russia. So, yeah, that is unfortunate. But there's not going to be a second war, exactly. Yeah. This is the rise of the Axis. And I believe, their fall might be very soon. The rise of the Axis was great, but their fall is gonna happen. The anti-Axis regime finds itself with Russia being the starter. Shocker. So China and the very little alliances that are still existing since NATO and all of the alliances that the world right now has, the world had to make alliances. So Pakistan joined the alliance, so with some countries bordering. China actually might surrender, not to Germany, but to Albania, because China is very weakened right now. All of its civilians have been, But the Chinese military was mostly gone, but Albania isn't exactly a big powerhouse. So even though like 60% of all of the Chinese military is gone, they almost get their popular region back. However, before they get their popular region back, Albania fights back, and this time Albania uses 60% of its soldiers fighting. So China's 60% of soldiers and Albania 60% of soldiers. By that big push, they only have like 40% of their soldiers left. So yeah, 60% of Albania's soldiers versus 40% of China's soldiers. 55% of Albanian soldiers versus 30% of Chinese soldiers. And now you get the idea. The Chinese are cooked. So now, Albania is finally on tie with Germany in landmass. So yeah, that's good. Germany might actually become the best country now. But the anti-Axis regime only really worked with these countries, nothing really else. And now the anti-Axis regime, well, the Axis thinks is about deleting them. But for now, Albania, even though it's kind of very weakened, can still take on these small countries. They drop tons of bombs, which weaken them to like 10% of soldiers. But that doesn't mean they're not going to be able to fight back. They fight back enough to actually evade inner Albania, and they fight. Weakened Albania should have waited for a little while. However, now that Albania is recovering very fast, they start to invade back. But a stalemate starts around here. Sure, Albania doesn't exactly win the stalemate. However, they're not losing it either. But the stalemate goes a bit into Albania's order as they capture this, and they realize that this is going to get surrounded. They try to do like a retreat, peace proposal, but then that gets captured. But then they surrender. So yeah, Albania just gets this part. Now, the Nazis and Albania are thinking about invading the very weakened Russia. As the only reason why they could even push back the Chinese was because of Albania and them trying to save North Korea, which they failed very horribly at. So, yeah. By the way, South Korea also gets a bit stronger now. And Japan actually makes an alliance with South Korea. So, yeah. Looks like they're having an alliance now, like a little alliance. Yeah. So, this is looking like the Axis are going to win the whole entire thing. Not exactly, but we'll see. Albania is very hard to kill now that they are becoming an economic superpower. So with Germany. Because of how much oil preserves they're about to get, they're going to become an even more economic powerhouse. So yeah. They also finally take some soldiers and finish off Spain. So yeah, that's something. However, they don't invade all of this country. They thought they were going to do that, but no, they invaded basically everything of it. America is very mad about that because they had an alliance with them. They start to send like aircraft carriers and such. But then the idea of them going to war with the Nazis and Albania obviously gets scrapped because that will be the worst decision America ever made. Especially that the nearest Nazi base is really right next to them because they still have tons of things here. And they're increasing their like land of fishing here. But that land of fishing is slowly turning into military land over here. They already have this much land, but they don't want to go to another war with Canada. However, this time, the Nazis want the whole thing again, as they realized when they captured that lake, they had tons of oil in it. So eventually, they just capture the surroundings. With Canada being very weak, there isn't really any resistance. Also, the Brits lose their freedom because there were so many terrorist attacks of the military bases and such. So the Brits lose their freedom also. That was basically a excuse for owning the whole entire river, so yeah. But it was also because they lost a lot of soldiers and they were blockading such, so yeah. But surprisingly, they actually give America some land here. And obviously America accepts it. Like, who wouldn't want some land? So yeah, now America is a little more stronger. So, hooray for America! Yay! I don't really care anymore. And Canada is absolutely getting cooked. So, yeah. This is all they have, really. Now that... Yep. They own this whole entire lake. And they own all of this. They own... Let me circle it with my avatar. All of this land, all of this water, all of this water, all of this water, they own. And a bit of this, not really much, but a bit of it. This is the peak of, actually the second peak of the Nazi Germany in land mass. The first peak is actually coming very soon. So yeah, they invade the rest of Russia now. They need the oil and stuff, even though Russia was giving them like 10% of all of that. They wanted 100%. So the invasion of Russia isn't exactly fast, but they bomb a lot of cities, which leave most of Russia into complete scrambles. Yep. Tons of scrambles. Unfortunate for Russia. So yeah. Now, those scrambles slowly are starting to get united with Germany. And Albania is building its army now. But they decided they'll take this part of Russia with most of everything really not invading. They also take little parts of Germany, little parts. They also take little parts of India. India does not like that. India does not like that. India does not like that. And India starts to invade the Albania, but sure, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but yeah. They're not fighting this superpower, unfortunately. Especially that India doesn't get a lot of weapon supply anymore. And they were starting to run out of ammo. And they were giving tons of weapons and soldiers to other countries. They forgot about themselves. So yeah, they're very weakened, especially with their low military budget and them giving all of their trucks and such when they had a big military budget. Really put India down a little. However, that doesn't mean they're weak now. India will eventually get stronger, obviously. Now they realize that they need to get stronger, and they start making mighty India. They also ask for some land. For some reason, Germany actually accepts. Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah. They request for India to join the Axis, and surprisingly, they say yes. And Albania requests Iran, not complete control of it. They can still have the whole river, but like the area. Albania, Germany hesitates because of how much oil is in there, but they say why the hell not. So then they get, basically Iran. However, they can claim no area of this, they said. No area. They only get to claim the oil and such. So now the Albanian Empire is finally connecting. The only thing that needs to now be connected is most likely this part, which the Nazis actually gave to Albania because why the hell not? Albania soon repays the Nazis. Well, they're repaying it with a lot of supplies right now, but with also tons and tons of money. So, yeah. Folks, this might be the end for Russia. Tons of cities are getting bombed. Tons of cities are getting bombed. Yeah, I actually kind of like how the people are very nice. If he even is gonna leave, he's not gonna leave. So yeah, Russia is left into scrambles. So yeah, that's the end for Russia. They almost made their alliance worldwide. They almost made a giant alliance, but look at Russia now. Look at them. Albania also takes some land because they are gonna take it while they can. They request for some of the land here. They get a yes. So here it is, the final stretch of Russia. Russia isn't really able to fight back against this, but they unite some of their cities at the final battle. Also, the bombs really shambled the cities, but they start to rebuild some of it. But they can't rebuild some of the big bomb loads that are now connected with Germany. They're trying to disable the bomb loads that are not connected with Germany yet, because those are a lot more easier to rebuild. And surprisingly, they actually do that a bit good. And they also do a little bomb loads. They can't really do it, as Germany can easily rebuild that. So yeah. And winter isn't really doing anything. Matter of fact, more Russian people are dying from the winter than Germany people. They have very good suits now. So yeah, after this, I believe Germany is going to be the biggest country by far. I believe it already is the biggest country by far. Not by far, but it already is the biggest country. This land, though, lasts for a very long time because tons of soldiers were crowded into here. They say they have it. They say they don't have it. And then the line makes a big push. But then the big push gets interrupted. But then they always come back. The circle always comes back. This circle always comes back. They thought they finally dealt with the circle. No, they just didn't. No. They have a long war with this little circle here. And this little circle is killing many Germans, so they have to get in, but they can't get in, so they just say, fuck it. They keep on sending thousands of soldiers. Eventually, the big circle comes back, and then the big circle doesn't come back, and then it's just very, very hard. There isn't anything that challenges the Germans, especially in that small mass of land, surrounded by thousands of kilometers of Germany before. Now, they realize that some towns are all armed with guns and they have tanks in their basements for some reason, and they just shoot the Germans out their windows. That's what happens with that small town. That is something that happened here. However, that incident was a lot more small than that town. Back on the parts that were not connected to Germany, Russia is taking good care of them. Some of the parts have a little bit of troops, but they're not fighting the rest of the very weakened Russia Confederation. Yep. This is all. For now. At least. The war nearly gets called into a stalemate, but they finally say never. They keep on invading these stupid towns armed with guns and stuff. Take a while to get destroyed. However, they eventually do get destroyed. Nothing ever came close to that town, except these two towns that were armed with that were densely armed. Every person had at least 2 guns and 10 mags. And unfortunately for the Germans, they were kind of populated, so they actually put a big push. Not the best push, but it was still a big push. Also, soldiers started to come there from the coast and such, and it just took a while for this part to be done. They started to take over the last parts, so yeah. They own the most islands in the whole entire world by freaking super far. They have like 2 million islands around. The thing that's even close enough only had like 200,000. Actually, maybe even 100,000. I don't know. The Russia Confederation is done by now. And Albania actually gets even more land for some reason. They need more land for some reason. And the Albanians are not exhausted like the Germans. They easily cover the Soviet Union. They easily cover Russia with their everything, really. So, Russia really doesn't like that push, but they can barely even fight back against the Germans. And Albania is at their actual peak right now. The Germans are not even close to their peak right now. But after they take over Russia, they're gonna be bigger than their peak. Bigger than their peak, but probably not as good as their peak. If they stay neutral for 5 months, of course they will be. Every soldier, every single Russian person that hasn't died by now is probably training in the German army. And if they don't qualify with the training, all of 4 generations of their whole entire family get killed. And every single person that they love gets killed. So, yeah. Not even with bullets, because it's wasting a little bit of money. Neck breaking. Holy. Germany is a really bad country, but, it might be a little too late to stop them. The world doesn't get it. But without Albania, If Albania didn't exist, they would be stopped before they even got a hold of Italy, because Italy would have united with everyone there and would have stopped Germany before it became this bad. So yeah. Boom, 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 boom. Even the towns with guns don't even stop the Germans anymore. And there isn't any towns with guns anymore, unfortunately. Maybe a little bit, but they're gonna be nowhere near the other towns with guns. Yep, they took over Russia. And the meeting area. All of the superiors on Earth. All of the superiors on Earth meeting area. It used to be equal, but now Germany owns half of it. There used to be 10 superpowers, keep that in mind. Germany owns that much. Albania owns this much. And America owns this much. Yep. That's all. That shows how unfair the world is at right now. And all of this happened in the span of 5 years. Imagine living a wonderful life in Russia somehow. And in the span of 5 years, well, in the span of like 5 months, if you lived in the European part, you get captured, and yeah. It was terrible, especially that no one ever got a single right. This is it. The end. And Germany and Albania is at its biggest peak right now. So even though India is strong, India doesn't have any chance now. They were able to push it back and fight against Albania, and actually winning most battles because Albania was exhausted from other wars. Now their army is easily gonna capture India. I'm sorry to all of my Indian viewers. Your plot armor wasn't enough for me. You heard me. Anyways, this is it now. The final stretch of the world is really nothing. Albania captures everything except Japan, but eventually they do capture Japan. Now, the biggest country by far is Germany, and Albania by far is the second biggest country. The only thing that can even compare is America and this other part. Germany just builds their empire up now, with a lot of people joining the army because they want to own all of Europe. Yeah. Most people are very depressed right now, and yeah. Then the last defense effort comes. America, with their big army and such, spots one German soldier in Washington, D.C., and pulls the trigger. It wasn't a German soldier. It was a German general playing airsoft. They just are kind of an idiot because they did one thing that is so idiotic. As soon as they took off the orange tip, as they were like 30 seconds away from the airsoft match, he was literally walking into the entrance. He got shot. So now Germany is very mad because that was actually a 5-star general. America cannot fight against Germany. It really can't, especially because of the Great Depression that just happened, because of Russia not selling oil, and China and Russia were surprisingly a lot of things, and a lot of things were also made in China. So, yeah. Unfortunately, this is actually the end, as a lot of their supplies, especially for their civilians, came from China. A lot of their oil came from Russia. A lot of their oil came from Canada, which unfortunately is not giving any more oil and resources to the USA anymore because they need it for themselves. So, yeah. Washington, D.C. is already captured, so don't even try fighting against that. So, yep, this is all. Really. Now, this is going to be the end of part 1. See ya.